I hope everyone's settled down. Welcome back to, I don't even know what episode this is. We'll just say it's episode 5 of Inder University. My goal with these Inder University streams and these videos are to help spread the knowledge that I've been able to accrue through various resources in the game, playing the game, and basically help educate the general player base. Because let's be honest, the tools that the official Pokemon Unite team gives us aren't enough to be able to fully understand how the game works and how these items work. And maybe it's not on them. Maybe it is on us to help educate each other. So sit back, relax. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or put them in the comment section. I'll be happy to address any questions that aren't addressed throughout the stream, and we'll take it from there. So on the agenda today, what's your syllabus? We're gonna be talking about every single battle item. I've kind of grouped them in items that I feel like are somewhat similar. So you've got your mobility items, your kind of defensive items that aren't mobility, battle items that help you deal additional damage, whether it's to neutrals or to enemy Pokemon, and then Slow Smoke and Goal Getter, they're kind of individuals on their own. At the end, we'll also do a tier list, and it'll be an interactive tier list. If you guys want to provide your own opinions and whatnot, help me sort it out. We'll do that as well. Before I get started, as with every single Inder University stream, it's important that we pay respects to the people that made this possible, especially Unite DB, then the math cord. The information we have on these items would not exist without them. The assets in the stream would not be easy to put together without Circa and Unite DB. And the aesthetics of this presentation, they've been built by my girlfriend Palace. She's done an amazing job. They're the reason why they look presentable. So she works with me behind the scenes on that, even if she's not around and she might be busy with work. She's always the one keeping me in check and helping me get this done. But yeah, let's get started. So eject button, probably the item that comes to mind for any MOBA player that's played the game before. If you've played League of Legends, this is your flash. If you've played Dota, this is your roundabout way of getting a blink dagger. Every game like this has a small dash or a small teleport, and that's what you get with the eject button. If you're ever unsure on what item to play on a Pokemon, I promise you there is not a single Pokemon in the game that this item is bad on. I went on Unite DB and I looked at every single Pokemon and I was like, is there a Pokemon that if I had eject button on, I would be depressed? Not a single Pokemon. Now, many Pokemon will use other battle items better, but every Pokemon can use eject button. And the reason for that is you can use it to escape engages. So it's always going to be an escape tool for you. You can use it to engage. And if the enemy team has an eject button and they eject onto you, you can eject, you can counter your eject, and then it's up to which Pokemon has more mobility after that. So it'll always be good. But it's especially good on Pokemon that can combo, whether it's with their Unite move or just with their basic abilities. So to give you some really good examples is Blastoise with their Unite move. Blastoise can cast eject button while channeling their Unite move. And this is a unique property about all battle items, is that they're able to be activated during the animation of some of your moves. So think about moves that have really long animations and they take a long time to be fulfilled. You can activate any battle item during that animation, but if it's an eject button, you can actually move during your animation. So with Blastoise, you can activate Unite move first. He's gonna start doing like his little build up to throw out a spin of the Hydro Cannons. And you can activate your eject button afterwards to get the stun onto people immediately. You can do a similar thing with Snorlax's Heavy Slam. You can do interesting things with Pokemon that have projectiles that they throw out. So think Cinderace's Pyro Ball. You can throw the Pyro Ball and then eject and essentially throw a longer Pyro Ball. Same idea with Delphox's Mystical Fire. A lot of Pokemon have amazing combos with this move. So you're going to have to test it on a Pokemon per Pokemon basis, but a lot of really, really cool combos out there. Some of the other things that make it really good, obviously I talked about initiating fights, getting away from stuns, but also just dodging enemy moves that can be lethal. So I have Gengar up there as a Pokemon that can use Eject very well, and it's because Gengar is very squishy. Gengar kind of lacks independent mobility. Like both of Gengar's mobility moves kind of have some conditions on it. Maybe not so much on Hex, but definitely for Dream Eater. With Hex, you might play something like Full Heal, and we can talk about that later. But Eject is also good against Gengar, right? Against Gengar, you need to just dodge one of their moves, and you're completely immune to dying to them. If you dodge their Sludge Bomb, Gengar can't Hex combo you over and over again. If you dodge Dream Eater, they can't reset their Shadow Ball and get that big damage on you. So obviously you could run something like Full Heal to take that off after it's already been applied to you, but Eject button allows you to never get hit by it in the first place. It does require some foresight, some thinking, and some good reaction time, but if you're thinking about it in the back of your mind, it's not too difficult to do. Some other really, really good use cases to dodge things with Eject button, and this isn't as popular anymore because this Pokemon's fallen off a little bit, but Cinderace's Unite move. You know, Cinderace, Blazing Bicycle Kick, jumps into the air and kicks a big fireball onto their target and in an AoE around them. I don't know if it's by intention or not, but one thing you can do is the moment you get the audio cue, you hear Cinderace screech. If you just eject pretty much in any direction, but generally looking to retreat, you'll dodge Cinderace's Unite move. And that's a really big thing to dodge. You can also dodge enemy Blastoise. You can dodge any enemy Pokemon that look to engage with their own Eject button. So the item is incredibly versatile, very, very strong. I see some examples in the chat like Talonflame Fly. It's very good with Fly and it's very good against Fly. You can eject with Solar Beam, which is true. You can eject, you can follow up your eject as Dragonite's Hyper Beam to counter someone else trying to eject away from you. Possibilities are endless. We could talk about Eject button probably for the entire duration of this class. So I am going to move on, but so many different possibilities. And in the future, maybe we can even just list out every single combination with this. But trust me when I say this item probably has the most utility out of any other item in the game. And the reason why we don't see it played as much is because of this next item, and that's X Speed. So what does X Speed do? It raises your movement speed by almost 50%, and you become immune to any move speed reduction moves for the next 6 seconds. So let's talk about what makes this really, really important. First of all, is increasing your movement speed by 45% makes you incredibly fast, and it lasts for 6 seconds long. In the old meta, when Eject button was a lot more popular, Eject had a lot lower cooldown. I believe X Speed had a higher cooldown, and we saw Eject being played a lot more often. The thing is after those balance changes, we also had a meta shift happen, where Blissey became the predominant supporter tank Pokemon in the game. And because of Blissey nullifies other Pokemon's CC or hindrances, and in itself also doesn't have a lot of hindrances or crowd control CC types of abilities, right? So that means that dodging an important stun from a Pokemon, not that important. You're gonna get healed up or shielded by your Blissey, so avoiding some damage, not as important. But having 6 seconds of basically slow immunity and just running around as fast as you can makes it so that you can get to your Blissey quicker, you can reposition yourself as the Blissey quicker, and you can also just have mobility around the map. You can actually just use X Speed to walk from the top lane to the bottom lane and just out-rotate your opponents. Just using it as a macro move is also completely fine. So yeah, it's good when the enemy team doesn't have a lot of CC. It's generally more beneficial on tankier Pokemon because you can expect to still take some hits when you have X Speed on, but you'll still be able to escape, and it's still fine on squishy Pokemon. It's still really good on like ranged caster Pokemon that rely on going in and out. You'll see this item played a lot on Pokemon like Gardevoir, Delphox, Pikachu, even if they're playing Thunderbolt. And the reason for that is those Pokemon's moves generally have a cooldown that's lower than 6 seconds. So what you can do is you can cast your move, X speed out of the fight, wait for your cooldowns to come back up, and then you'll still have your X speed up when you get back into the fight or back into the range of where the fight is going on, and then do a second rotation of moves. You can use X speed to weave in your different moves. So it's got a lot more utility than Eject. And also just having a lower cooldown in comparison is really, really important. The other thing that makes this item incredibly broken and why it's probably the meta battle item right now is that a lot of Pokemon, especially in the top lane currently in the meta, rely on stacking. And, you know, when I say stacking, I mean leveraging items like attack weight, AOS cookie, special attack specs. If you watched the Held Items 101, you would understand how those items work. Very quick rundown of them. When you score, you gain a stack up to 6 stacks. The more stacks you have, the stronger you get. A lot of Pokemon rely on the scaling from those stacking items. What X speed allows you to do is go in for a stack and then X speed from the enemy goal to your goal with that speed bonus without getting slowed. And especially the reason what makes it X speed better than Eject here is that you also become immune to the red buff slow from the enemy jungler, who's probably going to be ganking you or going to try to stop you from stacking at around that same time in the game. You could also flip it on its head and, you know, use the X speed to run through the enemy speed flux zone, being immune to the speed flux slow and grabbing the enemy berries to keep yourself alive. And then on top of that, it's just got good synergy with certain Pokemon like Snorlax, who has a self slow on their block. You can use it to speed yourself up, knock people around faster. Just overall, very high utility item. Another item that you wouldn't be too upset if you had it on any Pokemon. Some Pokemon that are squishy and already have their own type of mobility, this item is going to see less value on. So think like Greninja and Cinderace. They've got their own kind of snap mobility. They can't really afford to take a lot of damage. So taking damage while they're X speeding isn't as valuable. So avoid it on Pokemon that are constantly like in the brink of battle and would probably benefit from other items. But on supporters, on tanks, feel free to use this item freely as you'd like to. Does it stack with other speed increasing moves? Yes. So like other stats in this game, the flat amounts of the values are added up together and the percentage based values are added. So I'm not going to get into how the speed stat works in full depth, but you can increase it by a flat amount from the passive bonus from things like EXP share or floatstone, the passive component of floatstone. And then the percentage based amounts are added together and then reflected among your speed. As far as I understand, I might not be 100% right on that, but intuitively, I feel like that's how it works. And I'm pretty sure I'm right. So what that means is like, you know, X speed could give you 45% speed. You might get some additional speed from Helping Hand or Leaf Tornado. Those would all stack. Generally, you know, speed slowing moves, so things that slow your movement speed, also have a percentage based value. So that would interact normally with other percentage speed increases, but X speed makes you immune to movement speed reduction during its activation as well. So that wouldn't come into play as much. One thing I want to mention, and if you've played this item a lot, you might have felt this happen to you, is that sometimes it feels like X speed isn't making you immune to some slows. Probably the most notable one is red buff. Sometimes you feel like you activate X speed and you're not immune to the red buff slow, you're just nullifying it with your own speed bonus. And I haven't been able to confirm this with other players. So this is purely based on my intuitive knowledge of the game. So take it with a grain of salt. But from what I understand, X speed makes you immune to movement speed reduction, but it doesn't cleanse movement speed debuffs that are currently on you. And I know you might be confused because when you walk through the speed flux zone, you activate your X speed and you get to walk away scot-free. And I'll talk about that in a second as well. But the reason why it feels like you don't get immune to red buff, right? And you just constantly get slowed by it, from how I understand it, is red buff, it slows you and then it lasts for 2 seconds. if the red buff user hits you with a basic attack again, that debuff is refreshed. It's not reapplied, it's refreshed on its timer. So if X speed doesn't remove movement speed on you, movement speed slows, and only makes you immune to new ones, if you get red buffed before you activate your X speed, so basically you would need to X speed when the red buff auto is in the air, then you would continue, you would no longer be able to get red buffed. And the way that I've understood this to be correct, and if there's any Snorlax players watching this, is if you block and then X speed, you're slower than if you X speed and then block. I promise you that's 100% the case. I've played so many games of Snorlax. Took me a while to realize why sometimes my block combo was very, very strong, and sometimes it felt incredibly underwhelming. And I think it's the same idea being applied there. If you activate X speed after your block, you're gonna gain movement speed, but not make yourself immune to the self-slow from block itself. Now, this theory makes sense until you get to the speed flux zone, where you're like, at any point in the speed flux zone, if I activate X speed, I just completely start zooming around. And I think that's because X speed slow is just constantly reapplying itself. Like, or it's constantly being reapplied like every 0.1 second or X amount of seconds. And if you activate X speed at any point during the speed flux zone, you'll become immune. But into red buff, into Snorlax's self-slow, I'm very confident that the X speed has to be applied before the slows go out, because the slow X speed, from what I understand, does not cleanse speed bonuses or debuffs on you. It simply just makes you immune to them being applied onto you. So yeah, if that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, let me know. I can try to break it down more. But that's how I've come to understand this item. It's very, very powerful when used correctly. And generally in this meta, it's better than Eject. But an item that it does sometimes compete with, that it really shouldn't, is full heal. Now, this is an item that I think is almost underappreciated currently in Pokemon Unite. Maybe because it requires an incredible amount of skill to pull off very well. And we saw this on the big stage. But full heal is an incredibly powerful item. Obviously, it's very good into CC. And what it does, for those of you that don't know, is it removes all status conditions, and it makes you immune to hindrances for the duration of the move. Now, when we talk about status conditions, that means status conditions include hindrances. So you can activate this while you're stunned. You can activate this while you're slowed, and it would remove them, make you immune to them for 2.5 seconds, which I promise you, if you tell a MOBA player that you can be completely immune to all stuns and slows for 2.5 seconds, any player coming from a different game, this is the item that they're gonna run every single game, because it's just, if it's got a lower cooldown than both of the other defensive items we've talked about, and it makes you completely immune to CC, this item is completely broken. I would go as far to say that this is probably the most underplayed item in the game. And this is an item that's almost good on every single Pokemon, simply because making yourself immune to slows and stuns and being able to activate it once you're already stunned is too powerful. You can get locked, like, you know, if you're stuck in a Slowbro Surf, if you're stuck in a Heavy Slam and you're already stunned, this is the only battle item that you can activate once you've already been stunned. You can't eject out of Mime Confusion once you've already been Mime Confusioned, you know? On top of that, if your Pokemon already has really, really good mobility, adding the extra mobility from Eject or X Speed just isn't gonna give you enough value. And sometimes, you know, your Pokemon does so much damage, has so much mobility, that they just need to get off their one final move, and that'll end the entire team fight, right? So we're looking at Greninja Surf. You know, Greninja, you know, you could mess around with Eject button to stay more mobile and to dodge things, but if you're gonna get stunned and all you need is to get that one last Surf off and you win the entire team fight, which is how Greninja is played a lot of times, this is the best item. Lucario X Speed, same idea, you know? You have an infinite amount of mobility, so much damage. All you need to do is to get your extreme speed off. So activating full heal during that, very, very important. Similar idea with Dragonite and Hyper Beam. It's also good in Outrage, but let's talk about Hyper Beam. All you need to do on Dragonite to win a team fight is to get your Hyper Beam off on the objective at the right time. Yes, you can run Eject to angle yourself differently, to catch up to your opponents, to have additional mobility throughout the game. But at the end of the day, if you get stunned when you go for that Hyper Beam, which is a small window that you have, the entire game can just be over. So Pokemon that already have mobility, so Dragon Dance, you know, Surf on Greninja, Smokescreen on Greninja, Lucario obviously is filled mobility. These Pokemon already do really, really well with full heal. If you have an important move that needs to go off, very good. One thing I haven't talked about yet, and there's another point that's not even on here that we need to talk about, is if you're in a very debuff heavy meta, remember that full heal also cleanses you of status conditions. So when Duraludon Dragon Pulse was really popular, when that move was really buffed, full heal was an excellent item in that meta. You could remove the Dragon Pulse stacks off of yourself, and a majority of Duraludon's damage came from proccing those stacks on your Pokemon. So you could just pay attention when those orbs accumulate onto you, press full heal when you see the Duraludon starting to charge their move, and you become immune to a lot of their damage. Same idea when Absol Psycho Cut was really popular. Activating full heal to remove the Psycho Cut stacks to avoid Absol dealing additional damage onto you. Very, very, very strong. Like Tans is saying, you could just use it on neutral Pokemon too. If you're not in the mood to dodge Dread Slam, or if you just want to get hit by Water Gun, activate full heal Giga Chad moment. One thing I forgot to put up here on the slide, and I'm going to add it in for people that look at slides after. The reason why this item saw some play on the international stage was it's also a very specific counter to Tsareena and Charizard. Tsareena and Charizard both have Unite moves that cannot be activated on targets that are unstoppable. Full heal provides you with unstoppable on demand. So if you activate full heal the moment Tsareena or Charizard go to use their Unite move onto you, you'll completely nullify it and their Unite move will fizzle. It'll go back to a 90% charge. And especially into Charizard, if you full heal that Pokemon's Unite move, that Pokemon's just dead. Tsarena's kind of broken, and Tsareena can get away with not having their Unite move go off. In a lot of situations, also Tsareena can't, right? The fight's just lost. But on Charizard, if you full heal a Charizard's Unite, you've won the team fight, essentially. So full heal's got a lot of utility. I think it's an amazing item on the ladder. I think if we didn't see as much Blissey as we do, because Blissey kind of already fulfills that purpose for your team to give you that kind of support, we would see this item a lot more. But I'd say if you're the type of person that likes to play the same item on every Pokemon, just out of pure comfort, this is probably the best item you can play on every Pokemon. Yeah, Eject is good, but full heal's got such a low cooldown. It's got such good playmaking opportunities, and it can simply just win you an entire game off itself. The Safeguard also blocks Tsareena and Zardolt any source of unstoppable does. So yes, Safeguard does. If you're playing Lucario, you can stand there in close combat or power up punch when it's coming at you. If you're playing Blastoise with Surf, you can surf it. You can use Trevenant's Horn Leech to dodge it. You can use anything that gives your Pokemon any amount of unstoppable frames. If you're unstoppable when the Charizard or the Tsareena would land onto you to activate their Unite move, you will fizzle their Unite. Full heal gives you the biggest window because it's 2.5 seconds, or a big window, but any Pokemon with their entire kit can do it as well. You could do it with Greninja's Slow Smoke or Smokescreen. There's a lot of different counterplay out there, but full heal gives you that on demand. Cool. Let's move on to, I would say, full heal's younger cousin, not brother because they're not similar enough, but they're in the same family, and that's Potion. I think a lot of people see this item as a one-to-one replacement for full heal. People like to think that, oh, I'm not good enough at using full heal, so I'm gonna use Potion instead. I think it's the wrong type of mindset to have. It's an item that has some power level to it. Admittedly, it's not an awful item. It's better than most good players might give it credit for. But using this on Pokemon that don't have a high max HP pool, or Pokemon that aren't very interactive with their health bar, this item sees a lot less value. So let's read how this item works. So this is the first item we're going to talk about that actually scales depending on how your Pokemon stats are. You restore 20% of your max HP plus a flat 160 amount. That 20% makes a big difference if you're using this item on, say, Charizard or Cinderace or Gengar versus using this item on something like Greedent, Trevenant, or Slowbro. Tankier Pokemon heal more from this item than other Pokemon, and that is a very important distinction to make. Not only are you just getting more HP back, but your Pokemon has some kind of inherent benefit from taking damage and then healing it back, taking damage. And you'll notice that all the Pokemon up there also have forms to heal themselves. And two of these Pokemon, Trevenant and Slowbro, actually have moves in their kit that make Potion stronger. Some of you might not know this, but Trevenant's Unite move provides Trevenant with a buff that increases the healing from Potion by 50%. So your Potion actually heals for more after Trevenant's Unite. On Slowbro, during your Scald, you double all sources of self-healing. So if you Scald and then spam Potion, your Potion will heal for twice the amount. So on those two Pokemon, it's got just better synergy than more. Another concept that's important for you guys to understand is if you're playing Pokemon with Eos Cookie, when you increase your max HP, you get to heal more off of Potion. And every time you're increasing that extra max HP you've added to your Pokemon's kit, you're essentially getting more value from that item. You know, Eos Cookie is valuable the first 1200 damage or so that you take. And then if you don't heal that HP back, any additional damage you've taken, that item essentially isn't providing any value. But if you heal back the max HP you've gained from Cookie, you're basically getting another rotation of value from that spell. So Potion's a really good item in that sense. If you're running Cookie, it's got good synergy there. It's got some good synergy with some tanks. It is going to be outclassed by things like Full Heal, Eject, and X Speed, simply because you get to avoid the damage in the first place without having to take it. But it is a good item. And I think I might have said Scald. I meant Slack Off on Slowpoke. Slack Off, not Scald. Slack Off, when you activate it, you channel by laying on the ground, and all forces of self-healing are doubled. So just to clarify on Slowbro, if you're Slack Off during your Focus Band, you'll heal more. If you slack off and activate Potion, you'll heal more as well. And you do need to not move during casting, that's right. Yeah, so this item can see some value. It's okay on Pokemon that are squishy as well to get that little bit of extra healing off. I know you guys have mentioned you've seen some players play it on Gengar, maybe on Zera, and it's not awful on those Pokemon, but I would say on average, you're gonna get a lot more mileage out of the movement abilities on squishier Pokemon than you will with Potion. You know, take it as you will, but this item is designed for tanks and supporters. One thing I want to talk about Potion before we move on to the next item is I see a lot of Blissey players play Potion with Soft Boiled, and the idea is that, people come into my chat or in the YouTube comments, they mention this to me all the time, and it's like, oh, my Pokemon heals, so I want to get more healing from Potion. That just makes sense to me. And it's the exact opposite way that you want to look at it. Blissey and Pokemon that are relying on supporting, if they've already got a way to heal your teammates, Blissey can heal themselves with Soft Boiled as well. The main thing is you want to be able to further your strengths on the Pokemon, not just mimic what they're already doing. So on Blissey, you want to have mobility to be able to go and heal your teammates. On Eldegoss, you want to be able to have mobility to get your teammates to use your Unite on them, or have some kind of offensive pressure. Like Potion generally isn't going to give you that same kind of value there. So that's something I wanted to mention real quick, and we can talk about that more in depth for different Pokemon another time as well. So on the other end of the spectrum, if you have Potion as like your pure defensive, I want to heal and be a support kind of item, or I want to support myself item, you have X Attack on the pure offense item. An item that is probably the most like offensive item you can add to your build. It's very high risk, very high reward when you do have success with it, is X Attack. What X Attack does is it increases your attack speed by 25%, so it makes you attack faster. And those of you guys that have seen the attack speed charts and are wondering, does this help on this Pokemon or this Pokemon? I would say for the most part, if you have a muscle band on and you activate X attack on 90% of the Pokemon you would use this item on, they're gonna get an attack speed tier bonus. 25% is a lot of attack speed, whether it's gonna be, you know, 4 frames or 8 frames or however many frames, it depends on the Pokemon, but you'll almost always see an attack speed bonus. And then in addition to that attack speed bonus, you also increase your base stats by 20%, both your attack and special attack. So what does that mean? All Pokemon's moves scale off of either their attack or special attack. So you make all your moves stronger. If it's a healing move, technically if you go X attack Blissey, your soft boileds during X attack, during those 7 seconds, will be stronger. If you go X attack Eldegoss, your Cotton Guards will shield for more. Is that an item you should play on this Pokemon? Probably not, but it's important to understand how those stats work and how they interact with your moves. It makes all your moves stronger and it increases your attack speed. Every move in the game is stronger during X attack, not by a large amount, and Pokemon that have higher base stats, which are generally the offensive Pokemon, you're gonna see a lot more benefit there. In regards to Charizard, a Pokemon that has fixed attack speed, X attack does not do anything for Charizard's attack speed. It does make Charizard's damage higher simply because you're increasing their attack by 20%. So it's not an awful choice, but you don't get any attack speed on Charizard with this item. We saw this on the main stage. I saw Tsareena's bust out X attack in some games. I saw Zeraora's with X attacks. Greninja X attack is, you know, something you might see Mame play on T2. It's an item that's been popular for some time on Auroraville Ninetales to boost their attack speed. It's really good when you have supports that you can rely on. If you've got a Blissey on your team with Safeguard or Soft Boiled, you can trust that they're gonna make up for that lost defensive item, and you know you can survive in the team fights despite that. If attack speed's a really important stat for you because you're doing a lot of basic attacks, this item is also gonna see a lot of value. You know, Greninja with attack speed is one of the most broken Pokemon in the game. Their ranged autos are really, really powerful. They apply that slow, and their melee autos also very, very strong because it does percent HP execute damage on the Greninja's melee autos. So more frequently you can do it, very, very strong. Obviously Cinderace, any Pokemon that relies on basic attacks, Razor Leaf, Decidueye, this item is going to further their damage output by a considerable amount. However, remember, if you're running X attack, it means that you're not running eject button. It means you're not running full heal. It means you're not running even potion. And you do have an opportunity cost at play. So if you're running X attack, you don't have that defensive item. I would avoid just ripping solo queue every single game with X attack. Eventually it's going to catch up to you and it's going to be annoying when you die to something you could have very easily dodged. But the item definitely has its payoff. It's very, very strong on Pokemon that already have other ways to boost their stats. So I see Azumarill being mentioned. Azumarill is a good example for this. Increasing their stats and their attack speed is really good with their crits. Azumarill's Unite move basically is Belly Drum, increases your attack by a significant amount, and then X attack stacks with that even further. So it's very, very strong on a lot of offensive Pokemon. And one of the other things that I think people don't understand about X attack, and one of the reasons why it gets played in competitive, is it helps you take down neutral Pokemons a lot faster too. So in a way, for top laners, if you're a solo lane top lane player, X attack in a way is kind of a defensive item. And hear me out on this. Let's say you're playing Lucario, and you know, if you're used to how Pokemon Unite works and the top lane, Lucario, you know, generally in solo queue at least, you're gonna run across, you're gonna cap the money or the Eos energy you got from the lane APOMs, then you're gonna go to hit one of the either the top or the bottom APOM on the enemy team. If you activate X attack, you're going to take down that APOM significantly faster and be able to retreat back to your base quicker before the enemy jungler can come and contest you on stacking. It's a reason why we saw, you know, after every Lucario started playing X attack because they wanted to just one-shot objectives that Random Gaming and Redmaw started doing, people continue to play X attack on Lucario because they realize that, look, this is not a bad laning item. It helps me contest the the mid-core fish. It helps me contest APOMs. It helps me get done with my early game job faster. And when Lucario is strong, when it's, you know, really broken, it's already got defensive tools in its kit and mobility. So X-Attack was just an additional thing to add on. So definitely a very versatile item. I think it's suited more for competitive play where you can rely more on your teammates, but have fun with this item, experiment with it, and try to use it with its strength, around its strengths like we talked about. X-Attack's counterpart, I guess, in terms of what it offers in damage output, the only other item that directly boosts your damage on certain, at least for certain types, is Fluffy Tail. Now, this item's got a very long description. I'm going to read it out for you guys, but I'll also provide you with, you know, the TLDR, explain to you like you're 5 years old, is it applies a debuff to wild Pokemon for 3 seconds. That debuff disables the affected Pokemon's attacks. So that's kind of only relevant for the jungle buffs. It doesn't really stop the big bosses, really. And it triggers an additional source of damage when the user deals damage to that. And that damage is based on your stats and a flat amount and has a internal cooldown. So how does that work if you're 5 years old? So you activate Fluffy Tail, you press the button when you're near an objective. It'll target onto the closest neutral Pokemon within your vicinity. It'll make like a little sound, and then every time you damage it with any source of damage, you'll deal an additional amount of damage. And remember, it's based on every single instance of damage you do to it. So what makes Fluffy Tail really good on certain Pokemon is when they have moves that also deal damage in very frequent instances. So think about Trevenant with Curse. When Curse is activated, it's constantly dealing damage very, very quickly. In the olden days, people used to play this on Blastoise with Rapid Spin Water Spout, because you're doing very, very small amounts of damage very frequently. Zeraora with Discharge, I've seen this get played. Not saying that those are the best ways to utilize those items on this Pokemon, but that's when the item gets its most value. It's also really, really strong at contesting enemy farm, whether it be jungle invading at level 1 or throughout the game, or just simply going for contested farm on the enemy sidelines. If you watch Worlds, Sejun Park from Korea, from Eternity, played this item on Greedent almost every game. They like to jungle invade, go into the enemy jungle, activate Fluffy, and go for the tackle when it gets low, because all those damage instances happen all at once. You have such a large window to outlast hit your opponent. And you get, you know, if you steal the enemy's farm, that's all you need to do. It's good on Greedent because Greedent's a Pokemon that loves to invade enemy farm, take what doesn't belong to them. Very objective focus, gives you a bigger window to last hit on objectives. We saw Gatlu at Worlds play this on Trevenant for very similar reasons. Gives you a bigger window to steal enemy farm. It burns through objectives when you have moves that do, you know, frequent ticks onto the enemy Pokemon, onto the enemy objective. But there's some things that we need to talk about this item, and I see Gura in the chat talking about it as well. In the early seasons of Pokemon Unite, and still to this day, people used to think that Fluffy Tail was a team-wide debuff, and that as a support, you could activate Fluffy Tail, and then everyone on your team would be able to get the benefit from Fluffy Tail. And that's not how it works. It only works on your damage sources. So if you're playing this on Blissey, you're almost never gonna see value on this item. Blissey doesn't have a lot of damage sources. When you select Egg Bomb, Egg Bomb's range is much larger than the Fluffy Tail range. So it's going to be very hard to steal objectives if you're max range egg bombing. And you're only ever going to get 1, maybe 2 Fluffy procs out of this item on Blissey. Most likely only 1. So I would avoid this item on supporters. It's not designed for them. It's not very useful for them. If this item sees some buffs, or if objectives are reworked on the new map, this item might see some more play. But I would say the Pokemon that this is good on are Trevenant and Greedent that I've listed. I should have listed Crustle probably with Stealth Rock. His Stealth Rock damage instances happen very frequently. But yeah, remember, same thing with X-Attack, is running this on a Pokemon means that you're not running a defensive item. So it's okay on Trevenant, who's got a lot of self-sustain and some mobility. Radiant's got a good amount of self-sustain, a lot of mobility. Crustle's got some mobility. Running this on Pokemon that don't have that type of mobility or sustain, you are going to be missing out on a better item potentially. So I would say avoid this item unless you really know what you're doing. But on Pokemon that it's good on, it can be very, very annoying. Cool. So now we move on to some of the underplayed and maybe underpowered items of the game. Slow Smoke. This is an item that it had its time in the meta. It got buffed a while ago. And it probably got over buffed when it was good. Almost everyone was playing it. And then probably about a month later, it got nerfed. Let's talk about what this item does, and I have an interesting story to tell you on this item as well. So Slow Smoke creates a ring of smoke around you, slowing enemy movement speed by 80% and enemy attack speed by 30% within the area for 2 seconds. So yeah, you activate, you make a circle around you of smoke. If enemies enter that circle, or if you activate and they're already in the circle, they'll get heavily slowed. They can't really fight back as well because their attack speed's lowered, and they're almost like rooted, like their movement speed is brought down to such a low amount. When this item was good, because the time that the slow lasted on you was longer, even if you left the circle, the slow would stay on to you. And I think it had a shorter cooldown. It was just a better item when it was good. It was very, very annoying to play into. And the story that I want to tell you guys before we talk about what makes this item is good is when Slow Smoke got popular in the competitive scene, and this is something I started doing immediately and other players probably figured out the same thing and started doing it as well, is it started to run X speed to counter it. X speed not only was always valuable throughout the game, it didn't matter if you were Slow Smoked, but it provided you with a 1-to-1 out, cooldowns almost lined up perfectly, that if they Slow Smoked, you could X speed. And you could X speed to fight back, you could X speed to run away. X speed just completely countered this item. And right now, X speed is still popular. And I think a part of what made X speed popular was people realizing how good that item was. So even after Slow Smoke got nerfed, people continued to run X speed. They're like, this item is still good. And I think this item is probably responsible for making X speed the meta item it is today. But until X speed is around in the meta, I would say that this item is generally not going to provide you with good value. The most popular Pokemon that ran this item was Lucario with Power Up Punch and Close Combat. This is the same meta where Close Combat was buffed and it was a lot stronger than it is today. And the main goal was you would Power Up Punch in, throw down your Slow Smoke, and then trap them in your Close Combat and essentially one-shot them. It was a disgusting combo. It needed to get nerfed, but it was really, really powerful on Lucario. It's good at, if you have damage over time moves and you need to keep the enemy within them, it's strong there. It's good at setting up your damage moves, so that's where it was good with Close Combat. And if the enemy team is running bad items, it is probably going to get a lot more value. If everyone on the enemy team has Potion, this item is a lot better. If they've got full heals and X speeds and ejects, this item's not going to get a lot of value. If everyone on the enemy team is Goal Getter, this item has a lot more value. They don't have anything to help them against this in terms of a battle item. But that's not how the game works, and it doesn't see a lot of value. Now, some Pokemon I've theorized that it could be okay on are Mr. Mime. It was an item that some Mime players played. Has decent synergy with the Unite move. You can create big zones on Mr. Mime that are unapproachable by the enemy team. For example, if a lot of players are playing like Eject button, you have your barriers to create chaos within the fight, and then you can add in Slow Smoke. I don't think it's the best option on Mime, but I think there might be a use case there. You can also activate it during Mr. Mime's Unite to really keep people trapped in the Unite move, so that could be fun. And potentially it might have value if you're playing like a tank Tyranitar build. Might try that for fun one day. If you're playing Sand Tomb Tyranitar, keeping them in your Sand Tomb longer with Slow Smoke might be valuable. Haven't tried it personally, but it sounds like it could be fun. But that being said, like I've said, other items are generally going to outperform this. Other items counter this item in its entirety. And until we see this item buffed, I imagine it's going to continue to be underplayed, rightfully so. The final battle item we've got on the docket today is Goal Getter. I left this item at the end because it's by far the most controversial item, but it might be the most anticipated item to be used in the upcoming future. Right now, it's not very good. The reason why it's not very good, let's explain what it does. It doubles your goal scoring speed for 10 seconds. So basically, you want to activate this and you want to be able to score as quickly as possible. In the previous metas where Score Shield was a better item, you know, Goal Getter with Score Shield would allow you to dump your money in front of enemy teams very quickly. Used to be able to stack Score Shield with Buddy Barrier Shield and other shields. So what you would see are Pokemon like Crustle get their Unite Move Shield, get their Buddy Barrier Shield, Score Shield, activate Goal Getter, and even if they had 50 money and 4 people were hitting them, they could just cap in front of everyone's face, and maybe then that item was a lot more valuable. Nowadays, obviously those interactions have been nerfed, they don't exist, and as such, this is a battle item that doesn't give you any battle traits. All the other battle items, maybe with the exception of Fluffy Tail, they interact in the battle in some kind of way. All Goal Getter does is in a battle is activate the rattlesnake sound and maybe scare your opponents. It is intimidating. If you hear the sound, it will freak anyone out, at least the first time they hear it in a team fight. So yeah, we saw it played on Dragon Knight back in the day because he had a, you know, mobility with their Unite move, and a big shield that they could stack with Buddy Barrier. Same idea with Talonflame, Greedent, Crustle, these like really mobile, really agile, tanky Pokemon. Would combine it with Score Shield, and you know, we saw things like Score Comp. For those of you guys that have played the game for a while, you might have seen that as well. So it was really, really powerful back in the day. Nowadays on Remoet Stadium, not very powerful. But, you know, for those of you guys that are watching this live, in about a week or so, we're going to be shifting maps. Those of you guys that are watching this in the future, you might already be playing on this map. And the new map no longer has Zapdos. Zapdos allows your team to instantly score, making this item, you know, not as valuable if your team gets Zapdos. You generally want to play items to help you get Zapdos, which gives your team like a better version of Goal Getter for free. But on the new map with the Rayquaza, you no longer, which is Rayquaza is a big objective on the map, you no longer get that free scoring pass. And instead, what you're going to be getting is its own version of Score Shield in a way, kind of similar to like Regigigas if you've played some of the quick maps. It's going to have its own kind of mechanic, and activating Goal Getter with your Rayquaza buff might be better. But I think Rayquaza also has a mechanic that already speeds up your goal. So I don't know how that stacks up. I see some people talking about in the chat, people have tested it and it's not as good as people might anticipate. But regardless, the reason why it might be better on the new map, even if it doesn't speed up that much with Rayquaza, is right now the game plan is the pursuit of Zapdos, right? All you need to do is to win Zap and to win the game. In the new map, it might not be like that anymore, right? Having a larger point lead going into the final objective of the game might be more valuable. Making sieges throughout the game to maybe come back in the game might be more valuable. So from that perspective, Goal Getter might see some value on the future map. We'll talk about that in another Inder University that we cover on the future map. I'll probably end up doing 2 of them. But yeah, until then, I would say that stick away from this item. As with the other items we talked about, if you're running Goal Getter, you're not running Eject, you're not running Full Heal, you're gonna make yourself weaker in team fights. And at the end of the day, the fight composition is the best composition. So I'm always gonna see this item. I'm always gonna see this item as a situational item. I don't imagine it'll be the meta, and if it is the meta, I don't imagine it'll be for very long. But I think it existing in the back burner will always be very, very good. Now that concludes all 8 battle items in the game, but I did want to run a small exercise because we've got some time here, and that is to do a tier list with the items. There's not a lot of items here. Let's rate them. You guys can provide your opinions as well on kind of helping sort them based on what we talked about, based on your own experiences. But I think this should be fairly easy for us, right? I'd say Eject, Full Heal, and X Speed are the top 3 items. And if I have to put one of them in S tier, at the time of making this video, I think it's got to be X speed. It's the most popular item. It helps you invade enemy berries. It helps top laners stack. It helps Blissey support their teammates. It helps teammates get closer to Blissey. Just, you know, overall very powerful item. Low cooldown, lower cooldown than the other battle items. Maybe not lower than full heal, but just very, very versatile. Eject and full heal in A tier, I think I agree with that as well. These items are both also very, very strong. In some metas, it might end up being like this. It might end up going like this. It honestly is very meta dependent, but I think in our current meta, this is what looks pretty good to me here. I think if Absol or Gengar with Hex, Absol with Psycho Cut, Groudon with Dragon Pulse, if these Pokemon that apply debuffs to you are prevalent in the meta, full heal will become the best item. Full heal completely nullifies Hex Gengar because you just Hex off the Sludge Bomb and they can no longer Hex reset on you, right? So I think full heal has the potential to be S tier. For some Pokemon, it is S tier. But I feel comfortable leaving this over here. And I don't think the difference is very large between these tiers as well, which is kind of cool. What's up next? So I'd say that X Attack, Potion, and Fluffy are probably like within reason close to one another in how they operate. I think Fluffy has a little bit less use cases. I think X Attack is probably the next best one. It's useful on a lot of Pokemon, and the Pokemon it is good on, it's really good on. From a competitive sense, this item's a lot better. If we strictly talk about solo queue, I'd probably drop this item a tier. But I'd be happy to put that in the B tier. Potion next is what I see a lot of people in chat saying. I think I agree. I think Potion definitely weaker than all the three above items. In some certain use cases, it can be more viable than these three, but these three are like your holy trinity of like combination defensive or offensive items. Potion kind of only relies on being defensive. Now we've got these three final items. I see some people saying Fluffy is better than, or Soul Smoke's better than Fluffy. I think I would disagree. I think Fluffy is the next best item in these three. And I think it deserves its spot in the C tier for sure. This item is very situational, but when it's good, it can be good. And we've talked to lengths about this item, right? It's really good on jungle invading. It has its own niche and it's powerful in its own respect. And one thing you have to remember about these items is you can only run one of them, right? You can only ever run one battle item. So that means when you're not running one of the better items, or when you're running one of the worst items, like these ones down here, you're not running one of these items. So when you're running Fluffy, you can't have X speed or full heal or eject. And I think the loss of those isn't as impactful when you're running Fluffy because the upside is so good. Whereas Slow Smoke, while it can be powerful in its own right, I think most times you're running Slow Smoke, you're gonna find yourself regretting you weren't running one of these items. It's also an item that's directly countered by the best three items in the game, right? All three of these items are a counter to Slow Smoke, right? Eject is probably the worst counter because it's got the longest cooldown, but Full Heal has a shorter cooldown, makes you immune to the slow. X Speed lets you become immune to the slow and has almost the same cooldown. So in this current meta, if we're gonna say X Speed is S tier, I think by definition, we have to put Slow Smoke in D tier. Now, Goal Getter, does it go before or after the Slow Smoke? That's a tough question to answer. And I think it probably goes before. I think it's equivalent, to be honest. Maybe you guys are saying before. Okay, I think I could say that it's definitely not countered by the other items, which is a fair point for Goal Getter. It's just right now Zapdos is all that matters, and this item doesn't help you get Zap, but it does help you set up alternate win conditions possibly. And it's definitely annoying. It's just a race to the bottom on which one is worse. But yeah, Slow Smoke is countered by the meta. Goal Getter is just opportunistically not very good. I think in a different meta, where XP isn't as powerful, we could maybe move Slow Smoke up a tier. But I think Slow Smoke being the worst item in the game is probably fitting. I think it's just a matter of comparisons, right? If we're gonna have an S tier and A tier difference for Slow Smoke, I mean for X Speed and Full Heal, like if we have a distinction in tiers between these two items, I think we need to have a distinction in tiers between these two items as well. I think we could probably make this tier list with one less tier and compress it a little bit more, but I like this. I like the way that this looks. I think that probably wraps it up here. One thing that I wanted to ask you guys, and this is for the YouTube watchers as well, but definitely people on Twitch, is what items would you guys like to see them add from a battle item perspective? I don't have a lot of history in Pokemon, so I can't think of all the items that exist, but I've thought about items like maybe X defense. Would that be good? Revive? That sounds crazy. How would revive work? You just come back alive? Maybe it would need to have like a really long cooldown, like maybe like 180-second cooldown that brought you back to life at like 20% HP or something. Rare candy. I think rare candy is one that people have talked about a lot. Rare candy, maybe it just gives you a burst of XP instead of a full level, right? Maybe that XP scales with how late the game is. Max repel. Repel is an interesting idea. How would repel work? Maybe like repel pushes people that are near you. Life Orb. I think Life Orb might be better held as a held item. I don't know how Life Orb as an active item would work. An item that sends you instant home. That seems like that could be interesting. X defense that gives you a shield. Maybe like boost your defenses. Escape rope sends you directly to base. I like that. They should have that maybe. Maybe escape rope, you have to channel it. Wait, if you have to channel it, then it's just like going home. Yeah, maybe it just has to send you back instantly. You just press it and you go home. That seems kind of broken though, no? I guess the cooldown would have to be long or something. Dire hit, which boosts crit rate. I think we should stick away. Okay, two mechanics that, if there's Pokemon Timmy devs listening right now, two mechanics you should never, or three mechanics, all right? Three mechanics you should avoid in game design, and this is based on my experience as a competitive player throughout many games, are boosting crit rate in any kind of way, cooldown reduction in any kind of way, and true damage in any kind of way, right? They break the fundamental rules of the game too much, and they're almost always mechanics that make it very unfun for your opponents to play against. We saw it in emblems that made some Pokemon ridiculous with cooldown reduction. Crit rate is like, it's just so impossible to balance very well. And then true damage, we've seen it with Tyranitar. And true damage is probably the one that I hate the most. If any of you guys have played Yu-Gi-Oh or TCGs, those games have like a graveyard mechanic, and then in their history they released a mechanic that was like, in Yu-Gi-Oh it's called like the banish or the remove from play zone. I'm sure other card games have the same mechanic, but if you're gonna set up rules for your game, right, the rules in Pokemon Unite are you deal damage, you deal less damage to people that have defenses of a certain type, and shields make them avoid damage. Breaking the rules you set up in the game is such a cringe mechanic, because now you just have to add in like this weird additional layer that only is relevant if there's this one Pokemon in the game. And with Tyranitar, it just means that if you load it into the game with a Buddy Barrier, or if you load it into the game as the opposing Tyranitar, one of your moves like Ancient Power against enemy Tyranitar is just significantly worse. Like, I think there's some counterplay, obviously, right? There's counterplay in everything, but I think setting up rules for your game and then intentionally breaking them just means that you've added an additional layer of rules into the game, and it's almost always met with power creep. Yeah, in Magic, it's the Exile Zone, exactly. I'm not a fan of that type of mechanic. I think it's always like, in card games, obviously it's different, but in MOBAs, it's almost always like just ridiculously imbalanced, and yeah, I don't like those. So I think for battle items, we should avoid things that boost crit rate. We should avoid things that lower cooldown, which we're already doing that, right? The new map's blue buff is going to reduce your cooldowns, which I don't think is a good mechanic in the game. What is true damage? True damage is damage that ignores defenses and shields. So right now, if you're moved as 100 damage, and they have a shield, the shield will be consumed first. And that 100 damage will get lowered in the damage formula depending on how much defenses they have. True damage bypasses all of that. It just straight hits your health bar. If you're 1 HP, but you have a 1 million shield and Tyranitar tickles you after they've activated their true damage, you're dead. And I just think it's such a stupid mechanic. I don't like it. Cool. I'm going to wrap things up there, guys. Thank you for watching the YouTube video. If you have any questions about how this worked, put it in the YouTube comments below. And let me know what topic you want me to cover next. I think probably the next topic is going to be on the new map. We'll do 2 Inder universities on the new map. We're going to do one prior to the new map releasing, so everyone has an introduction to it. And then a follow-up probably a month later once we've kind of understood the meta. So the first one will be explaining what all the objectives do and kind of giving a basic understanding on what's good, what's not good. And the second one will be the meta of the new map. You know, what's good to rotate for, what's valuable, what's not valuable. So keep your eyes out for that.